Yeah, so I guess we should start with Erica and then Trump. I texted you when Erica was giving this speech because we were trying to figure out when this thing was going to end. We're like, okay, it's Erica. It must be the last thing. That-
Again, will you stop putting words in my mouth? I wasn't all worked up about when the thing was going to end. I thought,
I
it
didn't
just
say you were worked up. I said we discussed it. I was it because I was trying. We were going to plan this live stream, so we needed to know like approximately when it was going to end. Uh, and so yeah, I saw Erica.
I was relaxed about it.
Well, Eric, and then I thought, okay, but then Trump comes out afterwards, and I thought this was I thought this was very odd. A couple people thought it was odd. Some people thought it was no big deal. Like it fell along part.
I would never even have thought of it. I mean, I would have always assumed that Trump would be the grand finale.
Well, I mean, at most events, right? But this was kind of something different. And
No,
this
it
was,
doesn't matter. Any event with Trump, he's the grand
yeah. But
finale.
okay, if it wasn't Trump, if it was a different president, do you think he might have not gotten last?
Mm, I don't know. I mean, they brought Erica back out after Trump finished, and they embraced, and then Trump did his funny little dance. So, I mean, that was my favorite part. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw your clip of it. Yeah.
Trump couldn't resist doing his version of the YMCA dance, but for America the Beautiful.
So I'll start by saying something not very. We're kind of cynical guys, and we don't express our emotions enough. I think that I'll
Speak
say
for
that
yourself.
I'll say
I wear mine on my sleeve.
we don't express heartwarming emotions enough. I thought it was touching when she said, Charlie tried to save young men like the one who killed him, and I forgive him, and then everyone kind of clapped because that was the good Christian thing to do. I thought that was a nice moment. What did you think?
I had no reaction to it at all.
Okay.
I mean, I really didn't. The whole thing is so contrived. The whole thing is so theatrically presented and gone through so many layers of PR sort of approval and
Well,
planning that I can't summon the ability to have a genuine emotional reaction to it. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe that means that I'm just emotionally numb or semi-autistic or however people want to characterize it. But
I think you
yeah.
are
I
because
mean, maybe if I was there in person, I would have
like
had,
every funeral, every memorial is a staged event. Now, this is kind of ridiculous. This is over the top, and this is a political rally. But
well,
still,
exactly. I
if
mean,
she
that
had,
when people try to liken this or try to reprimand people that they should have a similar reaction to this as they would for any run-of-the-mill funeral for some private individual, and that you're so callous and disrespectful if you do not engage with this in the same way that you would engage in just a typical funeral of somebody who died tragically. That's so manipulative. Obviously, this is a massively potent political event. The entire Trump administration pretty much was there. The entire Republican kind of governing structure was there. This was not just some ordinary funeral or memorial service where certain standards of decorum or propriety would be more incumbent on somebody in terms of like not, violating certain kind of standards of behavior or being overly critical or being derogatory.
no,
This is totally different. So I don't even want to hear that like there's even any kind of analogy to be drawn here in terms of how normal people normally interact with a memorial service.
so I agree with like a lot of your approach to analyzing the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I think that, like Democrats do not have to vote for a resolution honoring Charlie Kirk if they don't think he was a great guy. If the resolution says Charlie Kirk was a great civil rights leader of our time or whatever they put in there, and they don't agree with that, they do not have to vote for that, and that's okay. They can even say we disagreed with him and we think he was bad for a society. Like that's fine. Like it's kind of crazy to try to cancel people or get mad at people for that. Um, Still, and this was political, blah blah blah, right wing cancel culture. Still, I can still because maybe I'm just soft hearted. I could still see there's genuine emotion here. I could get feel genuine emotion even at a political rally. Like I could feel like, oh, these people really believe in Barack Obama. Like I could feel that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, collective effervescence is a real phenomenon. So I'm sure if I was there physically in Arizona
Mhm.
at the football stadium and It's fortunate that the Arizona Cardinals happen to have an away game scheduled this weekend, because
Yeah, I
otherwise
wonder what
the
would have
NFL,
happened if they did.
like
Yeah,
the NFL, would not change their schedule if like an asteroid was hurtling for Earth. Like they didn't change it after 9/11, etc. So that was a happy coincidence, I guess. Um, but if I was there, right, I wouldn't be just confronting people crassly and like challenging them if I could observe that they were having a sincere emotional reaction to something. Like I'm not quote unquote literally retarded. I know we're all encouraged to use that word, so I guess I'll use it more now, even though I never really liked it. Um, I'm not so retarded that I would just be like barreling through the stadium and like starting fights with people or whatever. Like I went to a much, much, much smaller scale Charlie Kirk event last night in Rockland County, New York,
Mhm.
at a a Protestant church. It's like the Reformed Church of America. And, it was a church service actually. So it was different than this. But no, it was highly political. I mean, they broke out into the pastor started ranting about trans and pronouns and abortion. And even if he hadn't gotten to the hot button social issues, it still would have been intrinsically political because Charlie Kirk was a political figure. That's why we know about him. We don't know about him because he was a loving father or he had two beautiful children. Okay. So I'm not going to be browbeaten into emphasizing or, foregrounding those aspects of his whole persona in my evaluation of what function this whole spectacle now has in like the American political psyche. But at the same time, last night, it's not as though I was just like a loose cannon and like running around and just upbraiding random people who wanted to have like a solemn, prayerful moment of reflection or something. So,
yeah,
but
very.
if I'm just sitting and watching the stream and I see like RFK Jr. pretending to be some kind of evangelical sermonizer, I'm sorry, I don't feel like I have to resist the urge to ridicule that
Yeah,
because it richly deserves ridicule.
I
And
saw
so
your
did a bunch of
tweet.
other things at this event.
I saw your tweet about RFK, um, and but I saw your tweet, but I did not listen to it. I didn't watch the video. Let's see what he actually said because I want. I
So
want.
Jesus died at 33 and Charlie died at 31, and they have both changed the course of history, something like that. And that was because Charlie surrendered himself to God. That's what RFK Jr. is
Yeah,
talking
let's
about.
hear
I mean,
this.
give me a break.
Understood the great paradox that it's only by surrender to God that God's power can flow into our lives and
Wow.
make us effective human beings. Charlie Christ died at 33 years old, but he changed the trajectory of history. Charlie died at 31 years old. Because he had surrendered, he also now has changed the trajectory of history.
Stuff is so weird. So at the beginning of the Erica speech, she goes, she goes, 2 years ago at America Fest, Charlie was talking and he said, I surrender my life to Christ. And I said to him, I think I'm getting this right. She said America Fest or something. And I told him, God may call you on that one day. And then this happened. And now, like, he's returned to God. Did you see this?
I mean, it kind of blends together. I'm sure I
It
saw
was
it.
at the
She
beginning.
said that 2 years ago, Charlie proclaimed that he was surrendering his life to God.
And then she was like, God might take you up on that. And then a couple weeks ago, God was like, okay,
Oh,
now
is that why you say that she claimed? I didn't hear her say that God killed him.
that's no, basically, it's like, she's like, because you said you would surrender to God, God came down and basically, asked you.
Surrendering to God in this sort of parlance means surrendering to a life of serving God
I
or
know,
something to that effect.
but then she says when he was killed, she was like on September 10th, like God, like cashed his. It was something like God, fulfilled that or something like that. Here, let me get it because this
Okay,
is
whatever.
actually.
At the service that I went to last night, the pastor at one point misspoke or slipped up and said that Charlie was 33 years old when he died, because I'm pretty sure he subconsciously was conflating him with Jesus.
Okay.
But that's the level that we're at now in terms of the exaltation, which is like, really?
Let's listen to this, because this is at the beginning of the speech. I found it already.
Just a few miles from here, 2 years ago at America Fest 2023, Charlie delivered a speech on stage for our TPUSA Faith event. Charlie loves speaking off the cuff. He's very good at that, without a script. So I personally didn't know what he was going to say. And what he chose to speak about that day was his submission to the will of God. He quoted one of his favorite Bible verses.
Would he convert to Islam?
Verse 8. Here I am, Lord. Send me.
Ominous.
So what is she trying to allude to?
Just wait. You gotta let her. You gotta continue. You gotta listen.
After Charlie finished, I met him backstage and I spoke to him, and I'll never forget this. I said, Charlie, baby, please talk to me next time before you say that statement. Because when you say something like that, there is so much power in that verse. When you say, here I am, Lord, use me, God will take you up on that. And he did with Charlie.
Okay.
See, that was an accurate summary, was it not?
Not really. I mean, I would not translate that to Erica Kirk says God killed Charlie Kirk.
No, it is God used him.
It just means that it was part of God's divine plan. Like his whole life was part of God's divine plan, including his death.
Yes, God will take you up on that.
11 days ago.
Wait, here's more specific.
I mean, these people, you realize these people believe that God...
Look, 11 days ago, she says God accepted that total story. She's explicitly connecting it to the assassination. She's saying, he said, God used me.
Because everything that happens is part of God's plan.
Right. So she's explicitly saying,
you're aware that these people believe that the God of the Bible is omnipotent and omniscient, right?
She is saying that because he said these words, and then God was like, okay, I guess it's okay to take this guy.
I mean, I think that's a little bit too literal.
You're telling me it's literal. You love this literal. You love these interpretations. I think that's a pretty straightforward. I think it's a pretty straightforward summary of what she said. Okay, you don't find it that
it's okay, fine. If you whatever. Okay, so a broader point is that this I think I texted you this, but like, I mean, watching this really did make me want to become like Michelle Goldberg hysterically screeching in the New York Times about Christian nationalism or something, which I often find tedious, a little bit histrionic, but this was quasi-state religion. The entire administration was there. The entire, I guess, congressional leadership more or less was there. This was the governing apparatus that is currently in power taking part in an incredibly uninhibited expression of hyper zealous Christian sort of proselytization. And I'm not saying I would like run out and file a lawsuit alleging that it violated separation of church and state or something. I just kind of am increasingly of the mind that there needs to be some revival. If we're talking about a spiritual or Christian revival that's underway, there should be some revival of like secularism as some kind of ideal or aspiration in public life or just in private life anywhere. Now, I don't go around evangelizing for secularism or atheism. I was maybe slightly more into that when I was younger. It's not a huge part of my identity, but I do think that this stuff does promote very sort of superstitious thinking and sort of dysregulated thinking. And not that there's anything you can do about it in terms of whether people want to exercise their religion privately, but if it's getting the imprimatur now of the state, then I don't know. I do think that there's an extra layer of scrutiny that ought to be applied in terms of what's actually being promulgated here. And I don't find it, I do find it troubling in a certain way, because like anybody, like I guarantee you, if I were to say anything that was like seen as atheistic in nature right now on social media, I'd have a million people saying, "Oh, go back to Reddit, wear your fedora, etc." As if like there hasn't been, centuries of secularists or even atheists sort of critiquing these prevailing modes of sort of superstitious thought. And I don't know. It was just it's especially sort of jarring to me, having watched all that, and we're all just like supposed to think it's totally normal. For example, that at this quasi-state funeral, a pastor got up and said, "Okay, if you're not a believer in Christianity, please stand, and and please instantly convert to Christianity. Profess Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior." I don't know. I mean, I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more critical detachment from that sort of thing. And maybe it's not the most important issue in the world. I don't know. But like, if we're all supposed to like sit back in awestruck reverence of an event like this, but not comment on like the sort of mass credulity and even mass sort of hysteria that it promotes. And we're all supposed to like, we're all being told now, right, that there's a mass revival underway. At this event I was at last night, the pastor was saying there's a Christian revival sweeping New York and the nation, and it's a new great awakening. So stuff like that, like let's stipulate that it's true that that's happening. I don't think that there's any real like empirical basis for just like for just claiming that it's happening. I think people just kind of want it to say that it's happening based on like maybe some anecdotes, or like somebody went to church and like they claim that the parking lot was more full than typical Sundays or something. But let's say it did happen and there was like a massive surge in this kind of Christian belief. That would have all kinds of downstream political ramifications, cultural ramifications. It would seriously affect how society is governed. And I don't buy this idea that we're all supposed to just kind of
there's just
sit back and just like kind of mindlessly sort of celebrate it.
Yeah. I mean, they've been leaning hard into all forms of identitarianism. And so it's like this stuff where JD Vance, like, who's like kind of captures the beating heart, even the ones who are not Christians, they love doing this stuff. So JD Vance will be like, people want to tell me that I can't have an opinion or whatever, while my ancestors, are buried in this country many generations deep. He'll say stuff like that. And then he will say, when he's hosting the Charlie Kirk show, he'll say like Jesus Christ, right? They'll say specific. It's very sectarian. It's not like a like God, which can apply to Jews, Christians, Muslims, Hindus.
Yeah, this was not the God of like Thomas Jefferson or something, which was just deism. It was just this appeal to the unknown, or the numinous, right?
Remember what Hamid Dillon during the is that how you say her name, during the RNC, did that like Hindu prayer and they all went crazy? Like, that's unthinkable today. Like, first for the Hindu thing, and then second because like anything that is not Christian, like a Muslim prayer.
I want to know if when Charlie Kirk's pastor, I mean, apparently this was his personal pastor, and they had just been like, they said they were just in South Korea like the week before that he was killed. I don't know, saving persecuted Christians or something. I'm not sure what Christians are being persecuted in South Korea.
Refugees, maybe? I don't know.
But are they being persecuted in South Korea? I'm not sure. I don't think they went to North Korea. But anyway, I want to know when this pastor implored all the non-believers to stand up and profess Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, and then also told them to take out their phones and scan a QR code and they'll get all the resources that they need. I want to know if Stephen Miller stood up and converted, right? Because wouldn't he, like, if he was obeying the command from the pulpit?
I watched your clip, and it wasn't like everyone who's not a it was something along the line. It was more
if you haven't yet accepted Christ as your savior, he's imploring you to stand up and accept it.
And it was like, if you would like to do so now, there was like something like that. It wasn't like a command. It wasn't saying everyone had to.
Okay, I mean, obviously he can't legally command you to do it.
I know, but he didn't even say like you should do this or this is what you have to do.
Okay, and you encouraged it.
You encouraged it, sure, yes.
So did was Stephen Miller encouraged to stand up? And
yeah,
because he was saying no. Initially, he said, if you're not a believer, stand up.
Mm.
And then if you would like to profess Christ as your savior, then you can do it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, these people are Christians. You're right. I mean, you were telling me like these people believe crazy things, and I'm telling you, yes, they are Christians, and they take this stuff. They take this stuff.
No, but this isn't just Christianity generically.
It's Christian.
This is a hyper politicized, peculiarly American form of evangelical Christianity that can be syncretic in the sense that other denominations that wouldn't necessarily consider themselves evangelical can still be brought into the fold. And then what happens is they all kind of meld together into the same sort of evangelical presentation. So like JD Vance is supposedly like a recent Catholic convert. So this sort of public profession of faith or whatever would be very much alien to the kind of Catholicism that he seems to subscribe by. But did you see what he said in his speech? He says, I always felt a little uncomfortable talking about my faith in public, as much as I love the Lord. And as much as it was an important part of my life, I have talked more about Jesus Christ in the past 2 weeks than I have my entire time in public life. So basically, I mean, the note that I jotted down is kind of like all roads lead to this sort of just mishmash of evangelical fervor when it comes to the politicized right-wing variant.
Yeah. By the way, you know, another person who was implored to convert to Christianity besides Stephen Miller was Usha Vance, who is not a Catholic.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I just recently read an interview about this where she hasn't joined his religion, so it's very kind of. It is. Do you agree with me? By the way, like you couldn't do a Hindu prayer at like.
I thought everybody was telling us tonight, like the man is supposed to be the spiritual leader of his household.
It's all just goes out the way. Whatever's convenient at the time. You agree with me? So like okay, you couldn't have a Hindu prayer at like a Republican. They wouldn't do it anymore. And I also think that like even the Muslims for Trump thing during the campaign, maybe just because it was campaign season.
Well, and that was pure cynicism.
Yeah, that was stupid. But I do feel like you couldn't even do that. Like you couldn't even have like Muslims come up on stage and saying we're Muslims part of this. I feel like it's so sectarian now, and it's so like Christian and so chauvinistic that you can't even.
I mean, I'm sure I could picture Trump at some event where they would do, I don't know, a Hindu benediction or something like that.
I couldn't. Not
or like some kind of multi-faith prayer recital. I don't know. I could still see that happening.
I think there's Christians.
No, because but this was a specifically evangelical Christian event in the likeness of Charlie Kirk, right? So this is distinct from some kind of official event that Trump might hold where he'll just, throw a bone to some Muslim or Hindu or whomever who likes Trump. I could still see that happening because, like, I mean, the reason why he appeared on stage alongside those Muslims in Michigan or whatever, the imams, was because it was politically expedient. And so if there's a politically expedient